Watching the mighty beIN Sports, broadcasting to all corners of the globe from our international broadcast centre here in Qatar. Live now on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Richard Keys.
I'm Andy Gray.
If you're watching us live, yes, we're a little earlier than we usually are. If you're watching the repeat, no change, don't worry. Coming up on our programme this week, I've been trying to avoid talking about this, Andy, for a fortnight. But I'm afraid there's no getting away from it. We'll be speaking with Jan Augefiortoft, who this week followed up the story we did here about 6-8 weeks ago, that the Germans don't want video assistant referees. He's also talking, interestingly, about a mid-season break for the English Premier League, which it looks at last as though is on the horizon. Although the latest I read was it would be a staggered break. 10 would stop, 10 would play on, and then the following week the other 10 would play, and the first 10 would take a break.
Okay.
Rather, the second 10 would take a break.
That sounds very typical of the authorities in charge of football in England.
Yes, you'd just think break,
have a
wouldn't
break.
you?
Yeah, all have the same break. No one gets an advantage.
Look, at least they're talking about it.
Well, they're going to have to do it, Richard, with with the upcoming 2022 World Cup here in Qatar being played in November, December. Then the English Football League will have to, at least the season before, probably a couple of seasons before, have to try and implement into their season a winter break.
Jan's thoughts when we speak with him very shortly. Also, Ray Wilkins, who knows as much and probably more about Chelsea modern day than anybody else. He's been assistant to Gianluca Vialli, to Phil Scolari, to Carlo Ancelotti. It's a basket case of a football club. He should have known that when he went in. Maybe he did, Andy, and he knew he wasn't there for the long haul. But it will end this season either quickly now or they'll limp on. But one way or the other, Conte will leave his post at Chelsea. I was just thinking of that game that was in Watford-Chelsea. How many managers between them? And delighted to say, early season, you might remember we introduced you to an Englishman by the name of Graham Potter, manager of Ostersund. The reason for that was that they'd qualified to play in the Europa League. Well, now they've qualified for the knockout stages and have a date against Arsenal this coming Thursday. Matt Critchley's been out to see him.
I'm really proud of where we've come from and where we are now. The feeling in the town, and when you walk around and you see people with Ostersund Football Club hats and scarves, and a real pride in the club. It's something that's really special.
That's what waits in the return leg for Arsenal.
Cold.
Yeah, well, good luck to Graham and Ostersund's. Live, of course, with us here on beIN Sports if you're in the Middle East and North Africa this coming Thursday. Last week on Keys and Gray, we did this. Do you think there's a generation, David, of Manchester United fans doesn't know enough about Munich?
It's getting difficult for them. It's 60 years. Those of us who were close and experienced it are getting a bit thin on the ground these days.
I'm looking forward to playing for West Ham. Come on, Wires.
It's close. It's close.
Conte is not happy. The club is not happy with Conte. It's all falling apart. I think that Luis Enrique, he will be their next managerial target, whether that be the summer or before then.
There was a meeting this week at the Football Association to discuss where to play going forward from 2020. Paul Goodwin is, as you can see, the co-founder of the Scottish Football Supporters Association.
I think the majority of Scottish football fans would rather stay at Hampden Park. I think the issue is they would rather not stay at Hampden Park as it is.
Well, Newport County are going to Wembley ahead of everybody else to play Tottenham in their replay next Wednesday. Our next guest is Avin Foxhall, the chairman of operations at Newport County.
Well, the whole cup run probably is worth, around about $750,000 to us. And if you think that we turn over as a business 2.2 million a year, it puts it in some context.
And what about your burnt-out clubhouse? Can you fix that now?
That's definitely on the agenda to sort out. So hopefully we'll get that facility sorted over the next few weeks.
Well, of course, Newport were not embarrassed as Notts County were at Swansea the previous season.
And more importantly, did you see the crowd at Wembley?
Yes.
Nearly 40,000.
Yeah.
Excellent for them.
And one final postscript to the Munich story. The question to David Meek was, do you think there's a generation of United fans don't know enough about Munich? Cue Jesse Lingard's media team sending a tweet 3 minutes before silence fell at Old Trafford to mark the occasion midweek.
No, not good.
Right, this is one we've touched on previously as well. Jose Mourinho complaining about how quiet Old Trafford is. Their supporters now, Andy, saying we want to stand again.
How will that go down in Liverpool? The fact it's Manchester United, I mean, you know the...
Yeah, I think there's
the rivalry between these two.
There will always be people of the opinion, I think, that you are, maybe, that there is no such thing as safe standing. But I do think there's a movement in Liverpool to accept going forward that there might be such a thing going forward. So, we'll see.
I wonder if that'll make Old Trafford any more noisier.
Brian Reed's column this week, not necessarily this. It was this, Andy, I wanted to talk to you about. So let's bring it up. How many times here have I said to you that I've been reading articles by Graham Poll, Mark Clattenburg, Mark Halsey and Keith Hackett, all paid to give their opinions in newspapers on Monday mornings, yeah? Here are the results. Halsey thought Kane was offside for the first, but the second was fine. Clattenburg thought that both of them were offside. This is Tottenham's goals at Liverpool, of course. Hackett thought the first was offside, the second was onside, and it was definitely a penalty. And Poll thought the officials got both decisions right, which brings us to VAR. He goes on to discuss how would VAR have helped us. It certainly would have destroyed that emotional last 4 minutes of stoppage time at Anfield, wouldn't it?
You imagine how...
But these are the guys, Andy, that are going to be the likes of officials of that stature,
retired,
sat in trucks watching VAR machines, making big decisions.
But do you know what they are? They're also sat in sterile environments in those trucks, sometimes 100 miles or more away from where the game's actually taking place. Listen, from day one, I'm happy to be proven wrong at any time.
Say no more. Say no more. OK. Sam Wallace this week in the Telegraph. One more blooper, OK? And VAR, he says, will go on hold. Sam's very well connected. We've spoken to him on this programme a number of times. But this is the bit I wanted to show you. This is the surprise I promised you today. Now, David Ellery, professional game match officials guidance figure, has authorised a sixth figure to join the officiating collective now, supplementing the 4 men standing and the VAR at the Premier League's International Broadcast Centre in Stockley Park. An AVAR, additional video assistant referee, so that when the video assistant referee finds himself watching for things that are happening on the football pitch, there are now others, including the AVAR, that will be watching the game in order to try and help him as the match moves on. And Ellery, whose master plan this is, has made 8 different changes so far to the way VAR works. But now we've got an AVAR.
Well, why don't we just put 12 in there and run it as a committee?
We probably do.
Well, honestly, Richard, it's ridiculous. First we're told VAR. We were told that 2 officials behind the goal line will get 99% of the decisions
I'd rather
right.
that.
Wrong.
I'd rather that.
But it's wrong.
They
don't.
But I would
then
rather
we were
that.
told VAR will eliminate any wrongdoing at all.
It won't.
It won't.
What
it's
about
just causing chaos.
AVAR.
Brilliant. Why don't we have an AAVAR, an assistant to the assistant VAR operator?
I knew you'd like that.
Oh, my goodness.
I've been waiting for days.
David, well done, David. Another blinding idea from David Ellery. Keep them coming, David.
I can't believe how naive he was. Look, go and talk to your official, and I think that they got most of it right, didn't they, in fairness?
I thought so.
But don't stand in front of a camera, because what you're going to do is cause this kind of debate that followed. Did TV see anything? Do you remember him saying that?
Yes, I do.
And on the day I thought to myself, what was he thinking? Now, of course, Martin Atkinson, who was the 4th official, saw nothing.
No? Oh,
absolutely nothing.
So we're told.
But they've always used VAR from the time that Zinedine Zidane was sent off.
Yes, in the World Cup
final.
2006.
Because nobody saw anything until they went to the replay on the touchline, Andy, and the 4th official said, oh, wow, headbutt.
But what I don't get is, why is he not aware the camera's right in his face?
That's what I'm saying. Go and start.
How is he not aware? Well, why does he not just say to the camera, excuse me? He must know it's there, look. He must know it's there. It's nearly up his nose, the camera.
Did TV see anything?
No, he's not. I can't believe how this has grown from that night. I really can't. It was a penalty, simple. Has there anyone around said it's not a penalty?
I thought it was exaggerated.
No, apart from you.
Oh, apart from me. It's a touchy subject. Here's Arsene Wenger.
We have to get the diving out of the game. I remember there was tremendous cases here when it was the foreign players who did it. But I must say the English players have learned very quickly and they are maybe the masters now.
That's not the way it was reported
No, tongue-in-cheek,
in
that wasn't
the
it?
press
It looked
this
to
week.
me.
But Clive Allen was with us this past week here at beIN Sports. He knows Ali as well as anyone. He knows Harry
well
Kane,
as,
of course,
yeah.
because he brought him up. So what are his thoughts on diving?
I don't see Spurs as a team that have this reputation now any more so than anyone else, because it is part and parcel of the game. I think you find that any of the strikers within Premier League clubs now, it almost goes without saying, if there's contact made when you're anywhere near or in the penalty area, you will go to ground. So I don't think it's any more prevalent for Spurs as a team to be labelled with that accusation.
What would your advice be to Dele Alli, who's been booked 3 times for simulation?
He's just got to be very careful. He's got to learn, he's got to stay on his feet, he's got to understand that there is so much attention, so much analytical work done on what he does, how he goes to ground, and he has a reputation, unfortunately.
Pochettino says diving is part of the game, part of football's trickery. I sense you agree.
I do agree, because I think Maurizio has talked about the game from the 90s and the way it was played, the way challenges were made, the way players in those days went to ground under physical contact. And I think we have to be very careful that we don't make it a non-contact sport, because if we do, we take out lots of the excitement, we take out what football is all about.
Pros of a certain generation will tell you that. I'm not passing an opinion either way, but
Let me tell you who. Do you know who will tell you that as well? Fans of the modern generation. The vast majority, Richard, don't want to see a non-contact sport. They really don't.
thanks to Angus Scott for putting the questions to Clive Allen this week. Now, you made many moves in your career. Why? Give us a couple of reasons. You left Villa because you fell out with the
Fell out
manager.
with Ron Saunders.
You went to Everton because...
I went to Everton because Wolves were going down and Everton were going the other way.
Went to Rangers because it was your
It was
boyhood
the end
club.
of my career and it was my club, yeah.
There are many different reasons for joining football clubs. I've never come across one like this until now. Chelsea's Belgian philosopher, Michy Batshuayi, explaining to the German media how he chose his own destination. I love Borussia Dortmund. Black and yellow are my favourite colours because I love Batman and SpongeBob.
Brilliant. Well, why didn't you join Hull?
It does leave you.
Honestly, these guys, the modern football are brilliant. I'm not often speechless, as you know, but sometimes the modern player does leave me so.
You're watching an angry Andy Gray and Richard Keys here on beIN Sports. All these games live with us across the weekend. Some good football matches as well, of course.
Some hard to call
Spurs,
football
Arsenal
matches.
Underway.
And when you think how congested that middle part of this league is, there's some massive games around there.
Liam Brady will be with us to watch Spurs play Arsenal. So too Mark Bowen, who of course up until 3 weeks ago was assistant at Stoke City to Mark Hughes, a man with Premier League pedigree, played for Tottenham and Norwich as well. Right, when we come back, we will continue a lively debate on AVAR, VAR and all in the company of Jan Auge Fjortoft.
I think it's been very badly brought in an honest opinion. There's two sports, rugby league and cricket, that have used it for 20 odd years over, and they've had the teething problems, and they've learnt. But the people who brought VAR and haven't spoken to these people, which in my opinion is a big error. I think it's going to take up too much time in the game. I completely agree with it for line decisions, but you're taking the human refereeing out of the game. If a referee gives a free kick or it's on the edge of the box, then I agree with it to look at it and say, was it inside or outside the box? It's a split decision, it's done. But taking the time of watching it 3 or 4 times, and then again it's somebody's opinion who's watching the TV screen, it might not be clear cut. I think we have to keep the human element of refereeing, but the actual line decisions and the offside decisions that can be done in a split second, yeah, I'm all for it.
He's still raging about David Ellery, whose big change in football so far, Andy, in his new role has been to change the kickoff.
Genius.
That was him.
Genius.
60-minute games.
Yeah.
That's what he wants.
Yeah, genius. Honestly. You when people don't know us, you criticise David a lot when he's not here. I'm right behind David's ideas.
Jan Algafiotov joins us. We've just been talking to you about what's been happening in Germany. We did this, I said 6 weeks ago, maybe further back than that, Andy, but I want to talk about a break in England with Jan. But Jan, before we do, how's the VAR experiment continuing in Germany?
Well, confusing as in England, and you always think that the Germans will fix anything, especially cars. And but it's been terrible, and they've sent out letters to explain it, and the lack of communication has been bad. And I think the highlight of all highlights, and just to underline what you talked about in the studio, is that the guy who was in charge of that, Helmut Krug, they said he was a Schalke supporter. So there was a situation where Schalke was 2 penalties given, and they said, well, we have to fire him because we think he's a Schalke fan, and this was the head of the VAR. So can you imagine how many committees, how many things should you have? At the end, the only one you can ask is Allah, Buddha, or God. So you can't have this system, and I 100% agree. Do it on the things, ball in, out, false identity by red cards and so on. But I think you take the flow out of the game, and I think the main argument, as they spoke about in Germany as well, the fans of this system say that, well, the games are not getting longer. Now, of course they don't. At Anfield, they should have been given 9 minutes extra time, and I gave 4 minutes. So I think that argument is dead as well.
The way that things are in Germany, Jan, do you expect this to still be in place come August and next season in Germany?
I think the system will be there, but I don't think it will be the way it is now. I think a lot of the so-called child diseases, so to say, the lack of communication, the lack of body language of the referees, because I think this is all about the authority of the referees, and all the referees in Germany have complained that it kind of makes them a bit more insecure. And I mean, it's hard enough to be a top referee on the top level, but if you take away their authority, I think that will be terrible. I think in an evaluation now, you have to see through the system, you have a review on the system, and I think you will be back to the things that you talked about in the studio, the clear things. A committee that should overturn decisions by referee, where everybody will have a different opinion. I think that will go away, and maybe then at the end we won't be just old baggers who just sit and say that the technology shouldn't get into football.
Jan, the real reason I rang you, I'll get your thoughts on this in a moment, suggestions of a break now in the English Premier League. Here's Mark Haitley, Andy, who of course played for Milan, amongst others, and has, like Jan, having played in Germany, sampled what it's like to have a mid-season break.
It is a massive advantage for European clubs that go to big competitions in the summer, a massive one. It lets the body calm down as well, slight injuries that you carry, niggles and all that sort of stuff. It allows them to heal up, and you know, gives the fans that appetite back again to want and come and support your team, and big fan of it. It gets my vote.
Are you, Jan? Is he right?
Well, Mark and myself, and Mark is, I guess, even older than me. I mean, we were in a part of a system when rotation was a word we'd never heard about in football. It's interesting to see that the bigger squads they get, the more the wage bill is getting higher and higher. They rest their player in the different cups, the more they shout for a winter break. I agree, for your body, you get an extra time, and maybe that is an advantage for the English club. But last time I checked, some English club have won the Champions League over the years as well. And that argument for English players, for the national team player, that they will have an extra rest. When I see the English Premier League, I see the English national team player get rested all the time. It's called bench. So I don't think that would be a big solution for English football to take that break. I think the break now is called FA Cup, and if you see a lot of the clubs, they send their key players away in January anyway, and I think we have to find a mixture between the tradition of the Christmas. But I've seen that Christmas should be protected, which I like, because I think that is a major part of English football that we all love. But I think some of the discussions done now is not on reality. It's just more of a quick fix for a national team, and for the time being, English club not doing well in the Champions League.
Yeah, I sometimes, Jan, get confused, because apparently it's going to aid and abet the English national team, and yet we've got the cream of Europe's, in fact, some of the world's top players playing in the English Premier League. And they don't seem to be affected when they turn out for their national team. So why is that?
But I don't take that argument with English players. I agree with you. A lot of these players who will now be brilliant at the World Cup, there is a big chance that they play in the Premiership. And I think in the future, nearly all the best players in the world will be in the Premiership, and someone got to win the World Cup anyway, and they will have their background from there. So I think that it's a good discussion. I think Mark Hateley got good points, but used the right arguments, and this England will win the World Cup again. Well, ask the hero from 1966 how much rest they had.
Well, again, it's another very strong argument. I always like to know where our guests are. You're at a football stadium. Where are you?
I am to show you in Qatar that I am in Norway, and behind me is the football stadium, Ullevål Stadium, where we have beaten England many times.
Good lads.
But we have snow today.
I think I was there when you beat England one night as well.
Was that the night? Yeah, and Maggie Thatcher, Winston Churchill.
Maggie Thatcher. And our commentator that time, he's been known for that, but at the end he turned into a big fan. So he said to Phil Neal, terrible, he said, Phil Neal, he kicked down his favourite player, Tom Lund. And he said, not only have the English pigs in the stands, they also got a pig on the pitch. And he said, Phil Pig Neal. So that was for your neutral commentator.
Yeah, it's great to catch up.
Thanks, I enjoyed that night too, Jan. Don't worry, I enjoyed it.
Jan Fjortoft on the subject of VAR, video assistant referees, and the prospective upcoming winter break in the English Premier League. Yet to come, Ray Wilkins on the subject of Chelsea generally, Antonio Conte specifically. He's leaving, we just don't know when. Who's next? Why? How can Chelsea keep doing this? You're watching Keys and Gray on beIN Sports. This is not here so that we could show you that Darren Gough, the former England cricketer, has had a hair transplant.
It's good.
Because we could do that by pointing him out.
Ah, yes, that's true.
He's had the very same, of course, hasn't he?
Any chance for me?
None, I'm afraid, no. Absolutely none. He also would appear to be leaving his post as the Chelsea manager. When? That's the question. What a strange football club. Here's somebody that knows them better than most. Former England and Chelsea captain who's been assistant to Gianluca Vialli, Phil Scolari, Carlo Ancelotti, title winner with Ancelotti, of course. Ray Wilkins joins us. Ray, good to see you.
Hi, Ray.
Good morning, guys. How are we?
We're very good. Razor, whatever you're using, could you just turn it...
I'm a little bit worried, Richard. You're working during the day. This doesn't normally happen.
No, it doesn't.
Ray, just whatever implement you're talking to us on, turn it a little...
To your right.
To your right.
Yeah, that's better.
Now we can see all of you.
Now we can Why on earth do you want to see my face? You're better off hearing my voice than seeing my face.
No, I love the look of you, Razor.
This is a very good face for radio.
you make all the points I was going to. You've saved me time. Ray, what is going on at your football club?
I've no idea, Richard. It's very, very similar to when Jose Mourinho was in charge. They're actually playing in exactly the same fashion. And it's almost as if, and I hate to say it, that they're looking to get him out. I think Antonio's done a great job. I really do. He's got great passion for the game. He's moulded a squad together that is more than capable of handling the Premier League. But unfortunately, the players aren't performing.
Do you get the impression, Ray, that I'm with you? I can see so many similarities between now and when Jose got outed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, do you think that concerns Abramovich? Or is he of the feeling that, well, that was Conte's time. If the players don't like him, I'll do what I did with Jose. I'll get someone else in.
Well, it's looking that way, Andy, because that's what he does. He's changed so many managers over the last 10, 12 years, but he's always been successful. It's not been a case of whereby he's changed a manager and he's gone down the Swanee. He hasn't done that. He's changed a manager and gone on and won. So he'll be looking at it thinking, well, I might have to take the same path. But I've got to say, Andy, when I saw those players against Bournemouth, when I saw them against Watford concede 7 goals in the fashion that they did, absolutely shocking.
I agree with you. What about the players? Is it not time for these kind of guys that are multimillionaires, that are getting paid hundreds of thousands of pounds, not to play for the manager, but to actually play for the club and the supporters who are there every week with them?
But Andy, also as a professional football, play for yourself.
Yeah.
Have a bit of self-pride. I want to be the best player. When I used to put my boots on, I wanted to be, first and foremost, the best player on the pitch. Secondly, I wanted to win for my mates. I don't see this for these guys now, Andy. I really don't. I really don't see it.
Have they down tools, Ray?
Richard, down tools is not here, to be perfectly honest. I wouldn't like to think so. I'd like to think these young men have got a little bit in them. What I do think has happened is that the buying and selling in August was totally out of order. It wasn't in the right direction. To actually bring in Bakayoko and sell Matic for the same money was, for me, absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't see that at all. Now, what happened with Costa is a different matter. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of the Costa situation, but to actually tell someone by text that he's not actually wanted in the modern day world, why not sit across a lunch table, have some lunch, and say, this isn't quite working out, we might need to find somebody else. Since losing Costa, the squad is diminished.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got you back, Ray. You had a little panic up there, I suspect, because you got a telephone call, did you?
No, I didn't actually, Richard, no.
Oh, good. Okay.
You dropped out for a minute, fella.
I'm glad you're back. Ray, we talk about this, Abramovich, when he came on the scene, blew everybody away, had more money than anyone else. Now, football's changed. There's 3 or 4 clubs in the Premier League got more than him. So whereas he could go and get the best players and the best coach and continue to win, has that formula changed? Does he need to be aware of it, if it has? And how does it damage Chelsea going forward if they keep changing coaches now?
Richard, what I would say is that with Abramovich, they've won the FA Youth Cup 6 out of the last 7 years, Chelsea. And they have the best player at Crystal Palace in Loftus-Cheek. They have the best player at Watford in Chalobah. They're probably one of the best strikers in Swansea in Abraham. What actually happens is when they bring these players in from foreign shores, they turf out the very, very good young players that we have in this country. Give our young men an opportunity first, and then bring in the foreign player if it doesn't work. Because, you know, they spent £34 million on Batshuayi. Now, I know he went to Germany last week and scored a hat-trick in his first game, but he's no way near a Premier League footballer. Nowhere near. Abraham is in Swansea and scoring goals for fun. Solanke went to Liverpool for nothing. Give these young men an opportunity to perform.
So who is it making the decisions? Do we know?
I've no idea, buddy.
Must be coach. Surely it must be the coach, Ray. I mean, if he's got all these players, they're all his players, Conte's. Surely if he thinks that these young kids are good enough, he would keep them?
I don't think he knew these players when he came in, Andy, to be perfectly honest. And what happened, they were shipped out before he actually saw them.
Yeah.
So is that, sorry to interrupt again, Ray, is that the price then for keep changing the coach? You're right, I think it's 14 coaches in 14 years and 10 trophies, something like that. But if they find a little bit of stability, will they find a formula that allows the youth to surface?
They have to allow the youth to surface, Richard, because these young men can play. But unless they're given an opportunity to play, you know, a lot of people keep saying to me about Salah at Liverpool. You know, Salah was at Chelsea when they played Basel a few years ago. Salah scored against Chelsea. Bought him. They put him out to Roma because he played week in, week out. Then Liverpool buy him, and he looks magnificent. Unless you give these young men an opportunity, and we all need opportunities in life. You know, when I think many years ago, you get your backside down to London, get yourself some sunshine, and that's where it's at. And you have to be given an opportunity.
So if you had a call from Mr. Abramovich today, Ray, asking for what you thought, how we should go forward, would your advice be? Yeah, we need a new coach, or no, we need a bit more stability, we need to leave Conte in situ?
That would be my angle, Andy. Just leave him in situ, let him get on with his job. No one interferes with it. Let him buy, let him sell. And I think that's the only way to be.
Ray, great to catch up. Thank you.
Thanks, Fraser.
He's gone that quickly. Didn't even get a chance to reply.
I think it froze again.
It is. Let me return to my statistic. I think, and yeah, there we are. There we are. 15 seasons, 11 managerial changes. Now, here's what they'll say is the evidence that so far they've been right, and those that call for stability are wrong. But maybe things are changing a little bit.
Well, maybe they are. Yes, I get exactly where you're coming from. For the vast majority of those 15 seasons, certainly for 10 or 11 of them, they were the bosses. They had the most money. They could pay the most. They're also based in London, which, as you know, and you keep saying, is a huge draw for foreign players to come in. So for 10 of 11 of those 15 years, he was the boss. Now we have Manchester City, we have Manchester United, you know, that are certainly in the ballpark to blow them out the water as two. Certainly two of them. Arsenal, could they? Probably not. If they wanted to, they could.
Beyond England, because Paris Saint-Germain are able to do it as well.
Yes,
whereas when Chelsea were kings,
they were kings.
They were kings of the world.
There was no money in Italy. Now looks like there is going to be money in Italy again, so they're going to be back in the ballpark as well. Bayern Munich, you talked about, the Spanish giants are always looking at the best players and looking to buy them, and they're always an attraction. So it maybe has got to change for them. I get what Ray was saying about the kids. Unless you're at a club a couple of years, at least a couple of years, to watch these kids, you don't get a feel for them. You notice that Pep at Manchester City, he's only been in there, less than 2 years, but he's already got a feel, because he watches them and he goes to see them, about how the young kids are. That's why we see so many of City's young kids getting an opportunity as well. And I like to see that, whereas you very rarely see it with Chelsea. Mourinho didn't give them a chance. Don't think Ancelotti did. No one has.
No.
Because, as Ray says, makes a very valid point, they don't know them.
Well, the chief football writer at the Daily Mirror, John Cross, joins us and was saying last August that he didn't expect Conte to be there beyond the end of this season. I keep asking you, John, every week. It's become the new Arsene Wenger.
New Arsenal
gate, hasn't it? How long does he survive?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you could view Monday night against West Brom as a bit of a, as a given, really, for Chelsea. Surely they've got to win that. But conversely, it could also be the hospital path, because if they don't win, then it's really serious, isn't it? I was at Watford on Monday night, and it wasn't so much, I don't think, the result or the actual, performance as much as, and they were both bad enough, by the way, but it was what he said afterwards and in his tone. People have assured me that he's done that on a couple of occasions before, but this was, I thought, a man sort of challenging the board to sack him. Because from what I'm told, he will absolutely not resign, but he's almost like saying, go on then, if you fancy it, go and sack me. And that's what I think he's waiting to do. It's like on the touchline, he's so revealing on the touchline. Last season's histrionics, I think, replaced with kind of him just standing there looking a little bit cold, not getting wound up, not getting aerated, not trying to urge the players on. And it's just so different. This is a guy, I think, he's resigned to his fate. And it's remarkable, really, when you consider that they are still in the top four. They're still in the FA Cup, still in the Champions League. But the barometer for any Chelsea manager, and I think this is the key, is that while they are in the top four or very close to it, so within easy grasp, the manager is safe. As soon as that becomes perilous, then the club will act. And I think Conte has already mentioned that the fact that basically Chelsea's place in the top six is top four rather is vulnerable. As soon as that changes, I think they will act.
As you well know, John, I'm an avid reader of the UK press. The headline that I thought was the most inaccurate this week, you'll understand what I'm going to say, I think, was that Chelsea's players will have no say in whether Conte stays or go. Yes, they will.
Yes, they will.
They'll have the ultimate say, won't they?
They've got 100% say.
Because if they decide he's out, he's gone, isn't he?
Yeah, the thing is, you could read this two ways. And the point I tried to make in my match report was that basically he was looking for a message from the board, a message of support, and what he actually got was a message from the players.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point, isn't it? On Monday night, I felt I saw an abject performance, a performance from a team that's tired and fatigued, yes, but also didn't do enough for the manager. And basically, that's subjective. That's not saying he's lost the dressing room. It's just what I saw with my own eyes. And I felt that basically there was a few really bad performances out there. I mean, Luis was poor. Bakayoko got a 0 and got sent off in my ratings. I mean, it's absolutely shocking, I felt. Hazard, you didn't see him until the goal. I mean, you just didn't see him. And look, the word is that the players have sort of said to him, look, your working is too hard. And basically, it was always his intention to give them Tuesday off. He's responded by actually giving them 3 days off. So their first day back in today. And the training levels have been a big thing. And the players have been sort of unhappy with that. They do feel tired. They feel jaded. And it shows in their performances. But we'll now see, I think, in the next few days, whether that's got a reaction and whether that's got them back on side. But ultimately, I don't care whether it's Chelsea and Abramovich and the player power, player revolt. Players will always get you sacked. And if players don't, then the fans will, because they will turn on the manager. And that's often the case for any board. And at the moment, the fans are still with the manager. They still chant his name. But Conte should be worried about those players, no more.
As we speak, John, I think there are developments. Riyad Mahrez might indeed be going training with
That's very kind of him.
Friday.
Oh, well done, Riyad. That's nice of you. Oh, lovely.
Is there any case at all for Manchester City, Guardiola perhaps, saying to him, listen, it didn't happen. You are paid by another football club. You should be going to work. Get yourself in. Would that be a decent thing to do?
Absolutely, I agree with that. And I don't blame City at all in this. Let's be absolutely clear on this. I mean, basically, it's my understanding that City were looking at Mahrez for the summer. Then Sane happens, and they go, OK, we're going to see if we can get him now. And I don't think they've not broken any rules in that. I hear them sort of people saying, oh, why did they leave it so late? Well, it was the Sane injury. And I don't have any problem with what City have done. No. But if I were Pep Guardiola, I'd look at his conduct after what happened and say, well, he's not for me. Because any player with a poor attitude like that, I don't think I'd buy them. And I'll tell you what, guys, what is interesting is that I know it's gone for at least 2 clubs previously that they questioned his attitude and character because of the way that he was so poor in that season after the title success.
Yes.
For many managers and chief executives, it's not just about the talent of the player, it's also about the players' characteristics and how they'll fit in the dressing room. And managers do not want to see a player who sort of all effectively downs tools like that. If I was City, that would really worry me. And City might, you know, I think if they called him up and said, get back to work, son, I'm sure he would, because he's that desperate to move. But if I were Man City, I'd be going, no, not for us. Because if he does that at the drop of a hat, when he's under contract being paid £100,000 a week. I'm sorry, but that's not the character I want in the dressing room.
John, I wanted to ask you about David Moyes' situation. We think Conte might be gone by the end of the season. What about David Moyes? Had such a great impact going to West Ham, but I hear talk it's only until the summer. He'll be off then. Any truth?
Well, Andy, it's interesting, isn't it, that West Ham did actually issue then a statement on the back of one of those reports. And I must say it was by, a reporter who's very, very good on West Ham. And they sort of then denied that subsequently. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I have to say, as an outsider looking in, I look at West Ham as an absolute soap opera. It's always a shambles, isn't it? I mean, it really is. And, David Moyes has worked minor miracles, in my view, to kind of keep it on the level. And I just think the way that he has got them playing, and OK, they've had some indifferent results, but when we name the 3 to go down, not many people include West Ham in that. No. And when Moyes took over, I think everybody would have named West Ham. That's the job of work that he's done. He's very solid. I think anyone with half a brain, I think, at West Ham would be surely should be looking and saying, we'll keep this guy for the long term, because he's going to build foundations and he's going to build long-term stability. And that's what West Ham really need, because at the moment it feels like it's shifting sands.
Yeah.
John, we know where you are on VAR and we've discussed, so we're not going back there.
No, not yet.
Where is the UK press corps on the touchy subject of diving?
Oh, now, it is... I think it's been a very interesting couple of days, actually, because I think Pochettino sort of laid it down, didn't he? He sort of said there's nothing wrong with football trickery. You try and play to get an advantage. And this was defending, I think, Kane, who was accused of diving by Van Dijk at Liverpool, and Ali, who was booked for diving at Liverpool. Now, it's really interesting, I think. Most of the back pages, including my own this morning, have gone on Arsene Wenger saying that basically the English have become masters at diving. I think he's right. I think we are of an acceptance. It's probably that usual English football thing. The foreign players were doing it 10 years ago, so we're trying our luck now when it's all gone out of fashion. I mean, it feels like that at the moment. I think the FA deserve a lot of credit for trying to stamp out diving and trying to do good things about cutting that out, and I think that's worked quite well. But really, I do feel that we've got a major problem, and two of the sort of the biggest culprits, or two of the people under spotlight at the moment, are Kane and Ali. You will never convince me that Kane dived, because Kane had nowhere to go with Karius rushing out at him 100 miles an hour. He just won't. And I do feel sorry for him on that point, but I do think that we have an issue at the moment in the Premier League. And what I think is quite interesting is that basically the FA, in targeting sort of the punishment and what they are doing at the moment, they're trying to put the onus on making the player the villain rather than the referee the villain of the piece for missing it or being tricked.
John, sorry,
for far too long it's been unfair.
Last question. I thought the debate that surrounded Harry Kane was interesting but inaccurate, but I have got under the skin of my colleague here with it. I thought there was more questions to be asked about Deulofeu on Monday night, where there was no contact.
Yes, a penalty.
But if they just turned the offence into a red card offence, would that be an immediate punishment and have an effect?
Oh, you see, you'd have to double up with VAR so you could get an instant replay. No, I'm with Andy.
Get off you.
I'm with Andy. I just honestly tell you, I don't know how people can question that. Because again, yes, he's going away from goal. That makes no difference. But where's he supposed to go? What's he supposed to do?
Never mind that, John.
He's trying to get the ball. The goalkeeper would wipe him out if he stays on his feet. He's got nowhere to go.
Difference for me was one was Harry Kane, so we can make that an issue, and the other was Deulofeu, and he plays for Watford, so it doesn't need to be. But red card. If Dele Alli was picking up reds instead of yellows, would he think twice about it?
He might.
Oh yeah, for sure. It would take on a different meaning. I do think that the problem that Dele Alli has got there is he's been booked, and we've felt for a long time that basically the yellow card or retrospective punishment, if they do indeed gain an advantage by winning a penalty, would shame as much as anything players in. I don't think that's having quite the effect with a yellow card, because Dele Alli will give it a few weeks and then go again, and I'm afraid that's a sorry state of affairs. A red card would make a difference. Can you imagine the sort of the rows, because it's such a subjective decision? that if Dele Alli was clipped and had been sent off because of his reputation, basically, can you imagine the rows that would happen after that?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. You're right, we'll go to VAR. John, thank you very much. John,
thanks, guys.
Chief Sports Writer at the Daily Mirror. Thanks, John. Am I wrong, though, just briefly on Kane and Deulofeu? It was made a debate that Kane may or may not have died because he plays for Tottenham.
Because he plays for Tottenham.
Deulofeu plays for
Watford. Because of the magnitude of the opponent, Liverpool and Anfield, all of those things come into it. And Harry Kane will make column inches, as we've seen.
We'll get a brief word from Andy on the biggest game of the weekend, the North London derby at Wembley, very shortly. And also, we're off, as you can see, to where it snows quite a bit. This is Ostersund.
Oh, back to Jan.
Right, quickly on, that's of course where Jan was this morning. This is Sweden, Ostersund. Early season, we spoke to Graham Potter, the manager of this football club. Englishman, he got his team into the Europa League. Now he's got them to the knockout stage and a date against Arsenal this week.
Fantastic.
Matt Critchley has more.
The story of Ostersund's FK is quite remarkable. From footballing obscurity to taking on one of the continent's big boys in the Europa League next week, all done in less than 7 years. It's been quite a journey for this small club from central Sweden. And it's been led by an Englishman, Graham Potter, who's been the manager here at Ostersund since 2011. When he arrived here, they were in the Swedish 4th division. Then he got to work. Promotions came, crowds grew. In 2016, they went up to the Allsvenskan, Swedish football's top tier. Last year, they won the Swedish Cup. And that earned qualification to the Europa League. They saw off the mighty Galatasaray and PAOK of Greece in the qualifiers and made it through to the last 32 of the competition alongside group winners Athletic Bilbao. Now they're gunning for Arsenal.
It's a great challenge for us. We have to be at our best. We have to try and represent ourselves as well as we can in the game. That's what we've tried to do in Europa League throughout the competition, to be ourselves and use it as the opportunity it is to show what we're about.
It's of course a massive thing for us to host them and be there and
So that's a big thing. But if you see it and put it down to what it is in a competition, it's of course not where we want. We want to beat them, and we want to proceed, and we want to go further in the cup. That's what football is about. And the dreams is meeting these big teams in the finals, of course, and beat them there.
It's a big team, and the biggest team we played up here, and it's going to be an amazing game for the town and for us players. It's the biggest game in my life, and for all the players too. So we are happy about playing them.
We want to try and use the home game as an opportunity, like I said, to show ourselves, to show what we're about, bring a bit of our personality and our identity to the competition, and then we'll see.
One thing for certain is that Arsenal will be given a real game here in extremely testing conditions. A sold-out stadium, noisy support, artificial surface, perhaps all things that Arsene Wenger's side are used to, but these temperatures, well, not so much. It's been as low as -21 degrees here today. Next week expected to rise to around -6 or -7, but even that, let me tell you, takes some getting used to.
Most teams in Europe would say, you want to try and use the home game, and whatever slight advantage you have, you want to try and use them as best you can. But at the same time, you have to play well to be able to use them. All the other stuff, we're talking about top players here that we're playing against, top club. They've got sort of bases covered. So, the fundamental is we have to play well, and we have to be ourselves and bring the best of ourselves to the game to have any chance. We can't rely on external factors to get through. We have to focus on us and get ourselves as ready as we can be.
You've beaten Galatasaray on this road already. You've got past PAOK. You've qualified with Bilbao. You've knocked out Hertha Berlin. Can you beat Arsenal?
Yes, I think so. It's going to be really tough, but we think we can do it, and we have to believe that. Otherwise, there's no point of playing football if you don't think we can win.
These last year or so should be sort of an inspiration for us to keep carrying on, keep trying to improve, keep trying to get better. But I'm really proud of where we've come from and where we are now. The feeling in the town, and when you walk around and you see people with Ostersund Football Club hats and scarves, and a real pride in the club, it's something that's really special.
Sky's the limit.
Absolutely, why not?
Matt Critchley reporting. Don't miss it Thursday. Part of our Europa League coverage. Matt, incidentally, 3 pairs of gloves, 2 hats, still cold, and do not miss his extended special programme this coming week on Ostersunds ahead of that time.
So are we saying 10 outfield players from Arsenal will all be wearing gloves?
And tights.
And tights.
And tracksuit bottoms. Before that, of course, they've got the North London derby.
Yeah.
Arsene Wenger saying, actually, we're more comfortable going to Wembley than we would be White Hart Lane, because we do well at Wembley.
Yeah, they do well at Wembley, and the pitch suits the way they play. It's just 1 or 2 things that they might have to tinker with, both teams. Arsenal started with a back 3, as we know, a season, gone back to a back 4. Will they stay with that? Possibly. It's in this area, though, Jack Wilshere may or may not be in contention. If he is, does that affect us? Because they play with Xhaka just in there, and he's the one who just sits. And that's obvious, because Ramsey, who played last week, hat-trick. So we know what he does, he gets forward. Now, what they do up here, Richard, you've got, it would be Mkhitaryan maybe playing from the left, Ozil from the central area. And this is the questionable area here. It's a Wobie at the moment. But would they say Lacazette, who's a record signing in the summer, would they give him a game? Because Aubameyang's bound to start. So there's 1 or 2 questions. So it's almost like they almost play like a little diamond ahead of Xhaka, where these 4 players can all get narrow. They play quite narrow. And Wobie gives him a little bit of width when he plays there. Mkhitaryan likes to do that. He likes to go in the little pockets here and cause a bit of damage. So that'll be interesting to see what they do there. But it's almost like a 4. Xhaka is a holding player. If these boys go forward, then you go for you just in there to rescue it. But let's get the ball to these 5 and try and get them to manoeuvre the football, win the football match. For Tottenham, let me get rid of that first. Tottenham is interesting to me, Richard, because they... Oh, not the ball, don't want the ball. Who wants the ball? Oh, that's Tottenham at the top. That was the ball. What you've got is Toby Alderweireld obviously came back in midweek and played in the cup tie, right? Now he's a big, big part of them. What they've been playing recently is they've been playing with Dyer and Dembele in there, and then they're what they're calling their Fab Four: Kane, Ali, Son or Eriksen either side, Son or Eriksen either side. Problem they have if he goes to a back three, which he has done when he said Davinson Sanchez, Vertonghen and Alderweireld, he's gone to a back three. If he does that, his decision is, do I just drop out, say, Dembele, right, and I pay Vertonghen? So that leaves me with Dyer here. Then a decision in his mind then, I have to leave out one of his Fab Four, or does he say to Eriksen, you start a little deeper, and we'll play Ali and Son in these wide areas. And I think that, for me, is the big decision of the game. The big decision. Does he bring him back and go to a three again? Or does he say, no, I'm going to play with my four players that have done me so proud up there?
Harry Klinsmann here.
Harry Klinsmann, I knew you were going to say that. I was thinking of Klinsmann earlier today. No chance. So I think it's a fascinating game that's ahead of us. And it's going to be fascinating for me to see what Pochettino does. Will he keep this team and just go play it? Or will he say, no, Vertonghen needs to, Alderweireld needs to play, I'm going back to a back five, and who do I leave out? One of his Fab Four or a midfield player?
Guest this weekend for our English Premier League coverage, Mark Bowen, late of Stoke. 3-4 weeks ago was coaching there with Mark Hughes, played his football with Norwich and Spurs in the Premier League, and of course Liam Brady. Championship tonight, 22:45, it's Millwall and Cardiff. Arabic coverage on 2 if you prefer, or English language.
The Winter
12.
Olympics.
And in 15 minutes, is it?
Yeah.
30 minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes time, we've got the opening ceremony from the Winter Olympic Games right here, live on beIN Sports. Thanks for your company. Whatever else you do, enjoy your sporting weekend.